Hello, this is your host Akhil Navluri, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Techospace podcast series. So, in this podcast episode, I'm very much honored and privileged to welcome our guest who hails from Southampton, United Kingdom, and her name is Mrs. Lisa Woodall. She happens to be a one-on-one tech advisor for different tech companies, and she goes with an objective, a motto that you need to think beyond the tech search and she always gives a helping hand to different tech teams. So, Lisa, it gives me a huge honor and pleasure to welcome you to this podcast episode. So, how are you doing, and how are things in Southampton at the moment?
Hi, thank you. Thank you for inviting me onto your podcast. Southampton is great. We're in February, so the weather's not brilliant. But no, it's pretty good, thank you. Pretty good.
Amazing, amazing. I believe, Lisa, there's a lot of, uproar of, the English Premier League, I think, with respect to Southampton. So, how is Southampton at the moment currently in the Premier League table?
Oh, the football. Oh, look, don't talk about it. We're at the bottom. We're losing every match. It's embarrassing. It's truly embarrassing. There was a local derby last weekend with Bournemouth, which is the town that's quite next door to Southampton, and we lost. We lost. So the football team is not going great.
I got it, I got it. And, even as a Manchester United fan myself, even our tables are also not looking so good. But yeah, we'll have to see what things, are in store for us. So yeah, so without a further ado, like at the stroke of this time, 2 p.m. Indian time. So let's kick off with the podcast segment. Yeah. So Lisa, give me a heads up, or let's say, let's look back at your journey on on becoming that successful eminent industry leader that you are now in the tech space.
Yeah, sure. Look, it hasn't been quick. I mean, my experience goes back over 30 years, and I've done everything from starting as a developer in the case world, case development with data models and process models. I've worked in MI teams, leading MI teams with data warehousing and OLAP technology. And then I've moved into major website transformations across insurance, policy, underwriting platforms. And then, Akhil, I went into more of an operational role, and I spent time offshoring and outsourcing BPO, business processing, across the claims organisation and underwriting organisation of a major insurance company. And from there, my career took off. I got involved in business architecture, enterprise architecture, got back into IT strategy, IT roadmaps, um, moved into enterprise architecture, chief enterprise architecture, and then more recently, been inspired by a role that was around experience design and how IT shows up for all of us, and how the experience of using IT definitely needs to improve and change. Too often we throw tech over the fence and hope and pray that people understand what tech's going to do. And I've definitely in the mindset that in the tech world, we all need to not just worry about the technology, but also consider how to help people adopt and use and get the most from the technology we serve. Um, and, that's where we are really.
Amazing. Now, Lisa, if I have to, ask you, I mean, you just give me a plethora of, your career roles that you have done. Like, it comes in the space of architecture, operations, and technical. So I would just like to understand, like, what was the most fun part? Like, I mean, what was the best thing that, you found in this? Like, which was the best career role, according to you, in your
I
entire
mean, look,
tenure?
they've all been good. They've all been good. They've all had a couple of things in common. They've all been very much focused on senior management, C-suite, director level. They've all been looking more at the future landscape of IT rather than the legacy. And they've all been looking at the art of the possible of what technology can bring. And in that sense, um, they've all given me a lot of satisfaction. And the conversations that happen around IT when you're looking at it from how's it going to help us in the future? How's it going to radically change our organization? How does the way we're modeled in the way our business processes hang together change the success of the organization? And how can it benefit shareholders, stakeholders, society, and in my last role, the planet as well. So they've all had that, and I think um, I guess the key role, competency, skills would be the more analytical business analysis, business architecture, business management, because those roles have enabled me to be able to have conversations with business leaders that are very different to the conversations I would have with IT leaders that are more around the technical infrastructure, the technical challenges. So it's having that business acumen, those business conversations, and bringing them into technology, which have been the best roles I've had.
Amazingly so. So that really, gives me a clear idea about your versatility. Now, adding a layer to your versatility, Lisa, like how are you able to, connect different dots of, specialities ranging from senior executive engagements, different IT strategies, scenario modeling, and, different business design leaderships. And do you think that, it is resonating with the people that you're working with?
There's a few questions there. In terms of how I think about the dots, I'm a very visual person. So, following meetings, following discussions, my notepad will be full of pictures, models, diagrams, layered models across people, process, and technology. So I'm a visualizer and I visualize that picture like a digital twin in today's world. Everyone talks about digital twins. I'm creating that digital twin in my mind as I'm talking through things. And then how that resonates with other people is when I'm in meetings, in discussions, in workshops, I feel I have a interest in bringing the different perspectives to the table. So sometimes in sessions, an analyst might not be in the room. Sometimes an IT technology architect may not be in the room, but I've got enough knowledge to cover that at a high level and bring that perspective in. So it's joining up the dots, building that digital twin, building that mental model, improving that mental model in every session, every meeting you're in, and using that in follow-up conversations. Um, Always looking to pick up on the latest trends, the latest thoughts, the latest challenges, and translate that in the conversations that are happening.
That's pretty much precise. Now when we talk about the digital twins, Lisa, like before you're giving a presentation to the people that you're working with, do you give them a heads up beforehand that look, this is the thing that this is a visual that I have thought about, and what is your opinion on that, or does that happen impromptu in the presentation itself?
Over the years, I would have been in presentations with the model, with the detailed diagram. And I feel that people from a technical background or working in a technical community are very keen to get the technical models into the presentation and into the discussion. In more recent work that I've been involved in, I've realised that those technical models and those technical diagrams are better used in the technical community and not shared in the business community. So when I'm in the business community, it's less about the models and the diagrams and the pictures in technical terms. It's more about visioning the storytelling, how to tell the story, including quotes that make the diagram relevant. So the diagram's in the appendices, it's in the background so that people can see that what we're discussing is based on a credible foundation. But in the conversation, I'm having less and less diagrams. Maybe a couple of 4-box grids, maybe a couple of Venn diagrams, but the detailed model, the detailed technical digital twin, I'm keeping in the appendices.
Absolutely. Like it depends on on the people that you're dealing with. With the business may not the business will not understand too much of the technical aspects. Like okay, this is the system and this is the API. You need to give them a heads up beforehand. But when it comes to the technical team, they have to be full on, geared up with that. Okay, this is what we need to start with, and this is what we need to, progress on. So that completely explains. And Lisa, this is something that I really want to learn from you. Probably you need to give me a training offline about how do I create a digital twin and visualize things, because this was one thing even I used to do. I used to do minutes of the meeting when I was a QA in my former company. So it was upon me to do the minutes of the meeting. So I've never, ventured myself more into the digital space, let's say, doing the digital visualization, but this is something I would love to do, in the
Yeah.
further on thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think a good tactic is to consider the different roles in the meeting. Is there a finance manager? Is there an HR manager? Is there a managing director? Is there a CEO? Is there a CIO? and to realize that you're going into a meeting with multiple people, and to really think about your presentation and what parts of your presentation will appeal most to each of those roles, and what part of that presentation will appeal least to those roles, and really thinking about how you present to the group. Um, and bring that whole picture alive. And then obviously when you're in the technical world, it is the infrastructure, the security, the data, the technical, the engineers that you need to think through. So it's just thinking about who the audience is, of the minutes you're taking or the presentation you're making, and really thinking about who's in the room and why it matters to them,
Yeah.
why it matters to them.
Absolutely, absolutely. We need to, think based on like who are we dealing with, and based on the situation, we need to, come up with our ideas and the ideologies behind that. So now, Lisa, now let's talk about the innovations that we have around. Like as we look around, there is like a huge, there is a huge demand for technology, and there's a lot of innovations that's going around. Let's say, for instance, the digital transformation of technology. So I just wanted your view upon this. Like, how do you perceive these three categories? Let's say the employees, the end users, the business users, and how are they able to, perceive to such a transition in a short time? Do you think they are able to do that?
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting when you look at those three groups, the IT, the business, and the end user. Um, when you're talking about technical transformation, I find the IT community is early adopters. They quickly, intuitively understand the technology, and they're developing it, adding in features, thinking what they would need if they were using the IT system. You've then got the business that are trying to understand what difference does all this technology make to our business enterprise and our business operations and our business model and our business proposition. And then you've got the end users who are actually going to be using the system. And I feel that um, their voice is often heard through workshops, business analysis, maybe user testing, maybe focus groups, but we're often not making the time for really hearing their voices. And often they haven't got the time or the inclination to be engaged or involved in the sessions either. And I feel IT users tend to fill that gap. They tend to fill the gap that not having the end user in the room um, means we start to create that divide between what the IT community thinks should be in the system and what actually really matters for our end users. So looking at those three personas is really important. And I think when IT teams look at those three personas and really think hard about how to address the challenges, they end up with a better product. They end up with a better
Absolutely.
product.
Absolutely. But now, just correct me if if I'm asking this question to you. Like, I mean, do you think the points that you mentioned, let's say, the workshops, the user testing, do you think that has to be a mandatory kind of an approach for the end users, or do you think that okay, without that also it's fine, to
I think it depends on what you're changing. If you're just slightly improving a system, making it more secure, improving some of the features based on some of the data you've got in terms of what you're already seeing without having the conversations, then it's fine. But if it's a quantum leap, which we are facing right now in the world of AI, we're going from working in sort of internet and websites and web processes to intelligence and AI. This is a quantum leap. And I feel whenever there's a major quantum leap, when you're introducing something that's a step change, then having the voice, understanding, observing, seeing how the end user is adopting the new technology, the quantum leap in technology, the more important that is. So it depends on what type of change. It depends whether we're going through an era of improvement and next version, or whether we're going in a step change, which obviously right now in 2025, we're going through a major step change with AI.
a lot of steps with AI chain. It's not only about AI. Everyone is like, mentioning about AI, but AI integrated with different technologies. Let's say business intelligence, or let's say low code, no code. So It's, like it's getting weaponized. I would just say equipped. Technology is getting equipped with a lot of things, coming by. So I think technology is going to be much more sophisticated going on.
Yeah, I mean, it gets sophisticated every year. Technology is getting more and more sophisticated. We can do more and more with tech, which is fabulous and brilliant. Um, and I think, that does open up a lot of other questions, not just about early adopters and people making the most of technology, but also it could be creating a digital divide in terms of those that struggled in the old era of technology are going to struggle even more in the AI era unless we provide and support and think about how to bring them on board as well.
So what are the efforts that you do to make those people convinced that okay, you need to migrate from the legacy systems to the systems that are prevalent right now? Does that take a lot of challenge to convince them?
Um, I mean, moving from one world that we knew to a future world, I've come across in a few roles. So the first role there would have been when we were outsourcing business processes offshore. And this was business processes. So this was manual processes that people were doing, lifting them up, transferring them offshore. And that took um, a lot of thought on how to bring the offshore team up to speed, how to onboard the team, how to take them through the processes, how to get them to understand the processes, how to get them to understand the context. And I don't think that's any different in the IT world in terms of migrating from one environment to another. You have to look at the gaps. You have to be able to close those gaps with awareness and understanding, and you have to give it time. And I often, in my experience, have seen new systems arrive, migration poorly managed,
Hmm.
both old and new technology still running, which means the end user is often working across two systems, not migrating totally to the one, or they're just finding new workarounds. They had old workarounds
Yeah.
in the old legacy, they get new workarounds in the new world. So that migration needs to be again planned from a people point of view, in terms of what will people be doing differently tomorrow than they're doing today, and also from a technology point of view, what is the tech doing today that it didn't do yesterday? What extra data does it need? How do we translate the data we had in the old system into the new system so we've still got the history, to be able to have any queries of any of the business stuff that we need to have in a few years' time when people start querying contracts. All of that. I
Yeah.
mean, it's a massive topic. It's probably a podcast in its own right.
Indeed, indeed. I mean, probably if we have a next collaboration, Lisa, probably it's going to be about this for sure. If we can just talk, I mean, in and out and in depth about this thing. Now, Lisa, like in your mentorship, like how are you able to bring the best of talent and the best of potential with the people that you're working with?
Yeah, so I mean, I've been a manager, I've been a leader, I've been a mentor, and I've been a coach. They're all slightly different, but I definitely approach it from a similar perspective, which is the outcome. What are we trying to achieve? What's the individual trying to achieve? What's the business trying to achieve? What challenges are we facing? And also bring the joining of the dots that we talked about earlier into those conversations. So it's very much in the mentoring and managing I've done in the past, it's very much bringing that stepping up and stepping out and enabling people to have the time to step up and think about these other things that may be out of their direct perspective. And I'm encouraging people to say, yeah, you've done a great job. Technically, it's fantastic. Technically, it all fits together. But have you considered how the claims team are going to, perceive what you've done? Have you really considered when you go and do that presentation how interested they are in the technical diagrams or what's in it for them? So it's in the mentoring and managing, it's coming from the same point of view as the other answers I've given you in terms of, looking up, looking out, looking at the experience, considering what matters for the people you're trying to influence. And that can we achieve our outcomes faster with less stress and less hassle? Because sometimes we can.
Absolutely. Like any stories, Lisa, that you would, like to mention that, that has happened during your mentorship and how you made the best of an individual from the team that you're working
That's a great question. I feel like I'm interviewing for a role
with.
rather than your podcast. So let me think about this. So, I mean, there have been many examples where that has happened. The main example really has been where I've seen people I've mentored and coached go on to have roles higher in the organization than I'm in today or have been in. That they've listened and applied some of the thinking that I've shared, and they've taken it further and gone on to be better. So I've definitely seen people personally progress following conversations. And then I've definitely seen their solutions be delivered not just faster because we've considered, what's important rather than not what's not important, but also better because it's embraced the business context. And that's been in everything from service design, web development, process transferring, processes offshore. In all of the areas I've mentioned to you, there would be examples of how I've helped extend up and out and get a better solution as a result.
Absolutely. Now, when we're talking about the success stories, I totally understand that you're able to identify the best of the talent and the best of things that they can work on with. Now, suppose Lisa, like I mean, you are part of a project, and in the project, certain people are not on the agreeable terms. Let's say there's a team conflict going on, and it leads to an escalation. So, how do you manage that out?
Yeah, that's only happened a few times in my direct teams, but it has happened more frequently when programs and projects have been across teams, across IT disciplines, whether that's been service management, whether that's been project management, whether that's been product management. So when it gets to extending around teams, that has happened. And also when it's then been business expectations around timeline, cost and quality and projects delivering on time and benefits being realised. And in all those situations, when you start to see conflict, when you start to see disagreements, my approach has been to deal with it head on, to get the people in the conflict situation in a room together or online together, and to facilitate a collaborative you know, conversation around the challenges being faced. Um, Sometimes, if you've got individuals that might get defensive, it's good to have a call with them in advance. To say, look, we're going to have this call. We're going to bring you together. This is the purpose. There's no blame. You've all got the right point of views, but let's try and work together when we go into the group session. So it's preparing people for group sessions, having the group sessions, looking at it constructively, collaboratively, and then moving forwards. It's not easy. It's not easy.
So, to add a little, a lighter layer, or let's say a lighter thing, like on taking the lighter route. So what I was trying to say is like I mean, you're saying that you're gathering people around and, in advance you're telling them, okay, this is what, I mean, you need to talk to this person. Like we have to, break the bridge between all of us, that conflict bridge. So in that situation, do you people, just gather out and, have a lighthearted conversation, go for a cup of coffee, something like that?
Yeah, I've definitely seen that happen. I've seen lots of things happen. I've seen the opposite of that. And people clearly leaving the office at the end of the day disgruntled. And I've seen people at the end of the working day gathering around, having a coffee, having a joke, um, and being able to move on with that sense of humour. Um, I mean, we have quite a good sense of humour in the UK, so humour is part of our DNA. Not many other people get the humour we have, but humour does play its part.
Yeah, I mean, humor is a thing, will actually that will actually, lighten the situation and will make people on the same route and on the same boat, I would say, for sure. Now, Lisa, now what are the key initiatives that I mean that you take? I mean, let's say, what are the key initiatives that you have employed, to bridge the gap between the business and the IT?
I mean, the key initiatives are coming from common language. Start with common language, common frameworks, common approaches, common methodologies. And often You're in an environment where different people have different methodologies. You've got contractors, you've got permanents, you've got people from different organizations, all having different frameworks, different methodologies, and different ideas on how to get the end goal. You've also got business people that have their own language. We've touched on that already. When you're doing a
Absolutely.
presentation, really worry
Yeah.
about the language and the way it's presented. So when you're bringing people together, joining up the dots, bringing the team together, it is shared language, shared models, shared assumptions. It's having a strong kickoff session. Very often I haven't witnessed good kickoff sessions, and it's been 3 months, 4 months down the line, and suddenly the kickoff has to happen again because it's clear. Um, Other people have joined the project 3 months, 4 months in. They haven't benefited from the kickoff that others have, and you have to take those people back through the kickoff and make it work. So it's very much reinforcing, intentionally sharing the outcomes and what we're aiming for, the timelines, the expectations, and working together. So it's language, it's models, it's reinforcing, it's communication. It's being human.
Absolutely. I mean, was there a time where, you have acted as a business analyst during your tenure, or was it like, a normal approach? Or let's say, just in a proxy, let's say one business analyst is not available, and did you take charge in such a situation?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely sure in those situations, anyone with a business analysis background, who are able to facilitate sessions, gather requirements, understand perspectives, it's those competencies that are critical in that challenge. That's where the business analyst comes to their own, able to work across the organization, understand needs, understand priorities. So when you're in a room and you're faced with conflict, try and identify that business analyst. They may not be a business analyst in job title, but you may know they are the analyst in the room. They are the facilitator in the room. They can help navigate. It's not just about the person leading resolution of the conflict. It's also identifying people in the conflict situation that can also help lead and manage it through.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's there for sure, Lisa. Now, Lisa, like I'm a data scientist. I'm actually, but studying my master's in data science. So now, I mean, when it comes to a data scientist, like, what is the recommendation or let's say suggestion that you give to a data scientist to make themselves completely gelled with the technological team or a project team? Like, what are the suggestions that you give them?
I mean, the data scientist is the role to have right now. I mean, at the core of anything to do with IT is data. Without data, we don't have IT. So, data is at the core of IT, data is at the core of everything. And it's your moment really with the world of AI. The data that, it's your moment from many perspectives. One, the quality of the data, the traceability of the data, but also really honing in on the minimum amount of data that you need to get the outcome. Because the less data that's being processed, the better it is for the environment. If we're just gathering loads of data and all that data is going into the models and it's generating huge compute time, that's having a drain on obviously on the environment. So, some real focus on the minimum amount of data to get the maximum outcome, and also the security, the integrity of that data. And then in terms of how to fit into the teams, it's really understanding what problems people are trying to solve with the data in their business context. So there's the mechanics and the methodology of data, which you're going to be studying in your master's, makes you a professional in data scientist. But it's then how that data translates into the business world, and what matters to the business, what data does the business really need, or the public sector need, or any organization you're working for needs, and why do they need it, what difference will it make, and then how can you make sure they get that. So it's the business context is definitely the area where you'll thrive if you can do both the business and the technical aspects of data.
Wow. I think that's a best of both worlds. And probably, Lisa, you have given me a very good suggestion. And definitely, I would, uh, for sure pursue this one. And yeah, I mean, I have had a an experience doing the business analyst role as well in my former company. And the surprising fact was even that was a UK MNC. So we used to connect with a lot of people, I mean, back down in UK. So a lot of projects that I've worked with and done a lot of let's say requirement gathering. So this thing, but now it's going to add an extra layer to me because it's going to be a technical aspect altogether. So sure. So Lisa, do you feel that, do you think any time that a business analyst and a data scientist would have a conflict, or do they go like hand in hand? Okay. Like,
They go hand in hand. I believe that all the roles across the IT disciplines go hand in hand. I really believe that the analyst, the architect, the data scientist, the engineer, the project manager, there's more similarities than there are differences. And I feel that um, every one of those roles can work better together than they do today. But you're right, the business analysts and data scientists are usually in the same space when it comes to thinking about how to get the most out of IT. Um, and then you've got the service management community and you've got the architect community that come into the conversation as well. But definitely business analyst, data scientist go hand in hand.
absolutely. But there is an inside joke in the IT industry, and I've heard this couple of times. I've actually encountered this that the QA, a quality analyst, and a developer, they don't get along well, because if a developer creates something and a QA is the first person to to find a fault in that, so they are like chalk and cheese, I would say.
Well, they are like chalk and cheese. No one likes having their homework marked. No one likes the person marking someone's homework. And I think the key in that relationship is always to get the QA involved earlier, to get the QA involved when the system's being developed. Everyone needs to be involved earlier in the cycle. If you're just passing code between teams and you're throwing that code across to the next team, out to the end user, that's when tension happens. If you involve people, and that takes time, that takes effort, that takes money. But the more you can involve people early, the more you can build those relationships, the better. But I appreciate with workflow as it is today, with task management as it is today, you probably don't even know the person who's QAing your work. Someone else is QAing it and you're just getting the QA report. So I understand that's challenging. But it's a team sport. IT is a team sport, not an individual sport.
Absolutely. Indeed, I mean, yeah, and it's more like, it's a team and we need to have that. And once, the best part is once the project becomes successful, we are like, oh, wow, we made it. Like before that, we're like, come on, guys, can we really even, push forward? What is going to happen to us? And lot of uncertainties, just boil up. But when the project is delivered, they're like, oh God, we just made it on time and this is our success. Something
Yeah,
like
that's a
that goes on.
brilliant moment. That's a brilliant when you go live, and often when you go live for the first launch, the first launch when you go live, it's not perfect. You're going live with some issues, some challenges. There's been a risk assessment normally done to say, look, we can go live, but there's significant work to do to improve it to get the experience working okay. But that moment when you go live with something that's new, that's something that's a step change to where they used to be before, and that as a team you've had to handle financial challenges, data quality challenges, integration challenges, business input challenges. um, you've had to handle all those things, and the system goes live and you see it in production and you see end users using it. And going back to the question you gave me earlier, the business are proud, the end users are saying, wow, this is going to make a difference. And the technical team know that it all hangs together. That is a brilliant moment. There's only a few of them most people have in their careers, but that is a brilliant moment.
It's almost like lifting a trophy, literally. That feeling is so huge and so so on the top, actually. For sure. Now, Lisa, like I have just gone through complete, I mean, when I just go through your LinkedIn profile, I just find like a lot of a plethora of interesting content. So I just wanted to understand, Lisa, like whenever you come up with these insightful content, like do you have an agenda fixed up in the first place, or do you just go up the flow with the you just go with the flow? Okay, this is what I can write about since I just got an idea of this topic. So how does that go on about?
So my LinkedIn profile is very much reactive. I am very much in the flow. I'm reading other people's content and I reflect on it and I think that's made me think. That's made me want to have a perspective and have a point of view. I'm going to share the post with a tagline of what it means to me or what I think. And then often it also generates a blog post because it's created ideas over and above what we'd fit in a LinkedIn post in the first instance. So it's very much going with the flow. There are a few themes, though, that I'm really passionate about, and that is enterprise architecture with a capital E. It's about the enterprise, it's about the people, the data, and the technology, not just about the technology. It's about customer experience and the experience of tech. And it's about digital transformation or AI transformation now, as I see it. So those three themes are the themes that I tend to react to and contribute to, closely followed by ways of working, remote working, hybrid working, return to the office, those things too. So I go with the flow.
So, Lisa, before we can conclude our podcast segment, let's take a lighter approach, or let's say a lighter route. All right. So, I'm going to come up with a very a very quick rapid fire. So, which is completely all exclusive of the technical questions, or let's say insights that we are just having out today. So now, Lisa, like if I ever visit Southampton, so what is the place that you would like to suggest me that I feel you should go and see that?
Well, you should definitely head down to a place called Ocean Village. If you head down to Ocean Village, you'll see all the cruise liners coming in. Southampton is a major port for all of the cruise liners that head out to the Mediterranean, head out to New York, head out to Norway. So you'd get to be down by the coast. You'd get to see the cruise liners coming in and out, and you'd also be able to have a cold drink and good food. So I'd say head down to Ocean Village.
Surely, I think that's on my bucket list at the moment then. So, I mean, what was the best country that you have ever visited? I know, United Kingdom has a lot of beautiful picturesque locations. Like, apart from the United Kingdom, which country did you love the most? Like, in terms of the.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to say which country I love the most. I love skiing, so going to Austria, Switzerland, and France to the Alps, that is brilliant. So if I'm going skiing, definitely those countries. I love sailing, so going down to the Caribbean, would be a great sailing destination. But in terms of the best country, if I was trying to think about it, what would be the best country? Probably Australia. When I went over there
Oh,
on a tour and ended up in Perth and Sydney. And why am I saying that? Because the weather was fantastic. The weather
yeah,
was great. It was the right time of year. Um, it just felt good to be there. So probably Australia.
awesome. I mean, even I love Sydney. I've been to Sydney, and the weather is awesome there for sure. So now, Lisa, like, what is your favorite Indian food? Like, have
Indian
you
food.
ever had?
Well, I will have anything on the menu, but I'm going to go for chicken tikka masala, or I'm going to go for chicken tikka masala would be the dish. The number one dish in the UK probably is chicken tikka masala. Just love it with pilau rice and poppadoms.
Absolutely. That's a unique combination everyone talks about for sure. Yeah. So, I mean, what's your favorite song of all time?
Favorite song? That's a good one. It would be Look, I'm a big fan of big stadium music. The sort not quite rock, not quite hard rock, but U2, Simple Minds, Queen. And I think, resonating with what you were saying earlier about how it feels when a project goes live. For me, the favorite song at that point would be We Are the Champions by Queen.
Yeah.
That is just the song that when projects go live, it's just awesome to hear.
I mean, that song should be played when a project is done, and yeah, that feeling is just like, it's so good.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Lisa, like, I mean, you can just tell me if you have, and I have no idea on that. So, Lisa, what's your favorite superhero movie of all time?
What's my favorite
Superhero movie, like Marvel,
super?
DC Comics,
Oh yeah, It would be Batman. It would be
Batman.
Batman. Only because it's been through many genres. You know, it's quite deep, quite dark. He's against crime. You know, it'd be Batman.
Okay, what's your favorite road trip that you have
Road
ever,
trip, my favourite road trip. Look, I'm here in Southampton, which is on the south coast of the UK. And my son went to university in Cornwall, and it was an awesome road trip to go from Southampton to Cornwall. Took about 4 hours, very much went along the coast, you know, down through nice villages, past a lot of nice pubs that I'd have loved to have stopped at on the way. But that, and we were in a camper van, we were camping. That was a fantastic road trip from Southampton down to Falmouth in Cornwall.
Awesome, awesome, Lisa. So, Lisa, finally, thank you so much for being part of this podcast initiative of mine and giving me the opportunity and collaborating with such an eminent industry leader as you. And thank you for, I mean, so much for taking time from your busy schedule. And Lisa, totally, I was completely blown away by the conversations that we were having, especially the way you were, I mean, trying to identify the best of potential from the people that you're working with. And along with that, Lisa, the way you were just giving me the ideology about how a data scientist should work in an organization, actually that completely struck me. I'm not kidding in this, for sure. That's been the case for me. And along with that, the way that you're talking about the insightful content that you're bringing on LinkedIn and how you just go with the flow with that. So this was something that I would always recall, and I would just say that this is one of the memorable podcasts that I've had. So for sure, that's
Brilliant. No, well, brilliant. Thank you for inviting me. And, you know, my final message is always take the time to step up and step out and just think about what matters most for others, not just what you're trying to achieve with the coding and the technology that you're delivering. Just step up, step out, and think about others. And, you know, the career that people will have in IT will be exceptional if they do that.
awesome, Lisa. This, I think, listeners, I think this is an inspirational quote, and probably you need to make a note of this for sure. And yeah, so Lisa, thank you so much again, for taking time from your busy schedule. So, listeners, before we conclude our podcast initiative of this episode, so this is an open request to all the industry leaders out there who are hearing to my podcast channel. So, if you would like to, I mean, reach out to me with an interesting journey or a key useful insight through my podcast episode, you could reach out to me on my email ID, akil.navluri55@gmail.com, or you could message me on my WhatsApp number that's present on the profile page of my podcast channel. Or there's a new option right now. You could just directly DM me on my Instagram handle, which is the Technospace podcast. And whatever it is, I would get back to you as soon as possible. And who knows, it's going to be you next time, the next industry leader that I would be collaborating with. So on this note, this is your host Akil Lovebury signing off. We would be back with another podcast episode with another eminent industry leader. So till then, take care. Thank you. Goodbye. Stay tuned. Au revoir.